Hey everyone, welcome to What the Code. In this video, I will be sharing my knowledge about CORS, which is short for Cross Origin Resource Sharing. If you are a web developer, then you would have most likely come across this dreaded error, which would have left you frustrated. Don't worry, by the end of this video, I'll help you understand what exactly CORS is, what is the same origin policy, and how to handle CORS effectively. Let's first understand the same origin policy. It is a critical security mechanism implemented by the web browsers that restricts how a document or a script loaded from one origin, let's say one website, can interact with the resources from other origins. So we'll understand this better by understanding what is the purpose of it. It is to protect users and their data from malicious actions and security vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting or cross-site request forgery. FYI, I will be covering each of these attacks in detail in separate video. Let's imagine that you are logged into a bank account and you're browsing at the same time. Now, without the same origin policy, a malicious website you visit could execute JavaScript and try to steal your bank details. Or worse, they can make a withdrawal request on your behalf. That's why the same origin policy exists. Now, let's understand what are the parts of an origin. So, there are three parts. One is the protocol, which is like HTTP or HTTPS. Then there's a domain or a host name. And the third one is a port number. Let's compare certain URLs and try to understand which are same origin and which are not. So let's take an example of first one which you see here. With first one and the second one, the only difference is the path. So these are same origin. In the second example, if you see, the first one has a protocol of HTTPS and the second one has just HTTP. Hence, these are considered as different origin. So if you're making a request from this domain for an HTTP, then it will not work. Let's consider the third example. Here, the difference is a subdomain, and hence they are different origins. And the last one we see that the port number is different, and hence they are different origins. So I hope you understand what URLs are same origin, what are not. I would first like to demonstrate the course error. I'm on my domain whatthecode.academy and my tag block is on a separate subdomain which is block.whatthecode.academy. So what I will do is let me go to the network tab and copy any one of the fetch requests that I'm making. So let me just refresh, filter fetch requests. Okay, I'll just copy this request as a fetch. I'll go back to my main domain. I'll try to make this request from my main domain. So I'll go to console. I will paste the request. As you can see, it is making a request at blog.whatthecode.academy, which is a different origin than my current origin. So let me hit enter. As expected, we see the course error and it says no access control allow origin header is present. So we'll see what this is about. Also, I'd like to show you one more thing. If you go to the network tab and I click on all, you see there are two requests. One is the fetch request that we made. Another is a pre-flight request. This is very important and I'll explain you what this is. Let's now understand what is CORS. So it is a mechanism that allows servers to specify which origins are permitted to read their information from a web browser. So basically it extends and adds flexibility to the same origin policy. You can understand from the name itself, cross origin resource sharing. So now let's understand when would you require to share resource across origin. One, when you are making a fetch API call to a different domain. Second case is when you are loading web fonts like Google fonts, or you are loading static assets, images, videos, style sheet from a CDN. So that CDN is hosted on a different origin and than your own website. So these are the use cases for CORS. Now let's understand what are the headers that the server needs to send back to the client to allow the cross origin resource sharing. The first one is access control allow origin. Here you specify the list of trusted domains. You can even give star, which will allow all the domains, but you should not do that. You should only allow known domains from which you know the API calls will be coming from. The second one is access control allow methods. Here you can specify the HTTP methods that you want to allow. So sometimes we would not want to allow something like post or delete. We would just want to allow get. So you have the control over here. The third one is access control allow headers. Here it indicates which headers of HTTP do you want to enable. The fourth one is access control allow credentials. Sometimes we would want the trusted domains to access our authenticated routes. For that, they would require some kind of an auth token. So for them to store it in their cookies, we can have the header as access control allow credentials. So those were all the HTTP CORS headers. There are two types of CORS requests. One is the simple requests which do not trigger a pre-flight request, and they meet the following conditions, which is these are the methods and these are the headers, and in the content type only these are the values. If a CORS request meets this criteria, then it does not trigger a pre-flight request. If it doesn't meet the simple criteria, if it sends any other let's say method or any other header or any other content type, then it constitutes as a complex request and the browser sends a pre-flight options request. So options is a HTTP method. So what this does is like it will send the origin header, it will send access control request method and access control request headers. We will see this in demo code how what exactly these values are. Since the server will respond with the following headers, which is access control allow origin, allow methods, allow headers, and message. Let's even understand this better with a sequence diagram. So there are three things involved here: front-end client, which is your website hosted on a certain origin, the browser, and the server, which is hosted on a different origin than your website. Now we are taking an example of a simple CORS request. So we make a cross-origin request. The browser will check if it's a simple, that means it is satisfying this criteria. Then it is, if yes, then it will send the request with the origin header. The server will check if the origin is allowed. It will respond with CORS headers and most importantly the access control allow origin header. The browser will verify from the CORS header whether they are valid and your domain is in their allowed list. If so, it will return the response. If not, then it will block the response and throw error. Similarly, let's see the flow for a complex request which will have a pre-flight options request sent by the browser automatically. So we make a complex request, okay? Then what happens is the browser checks it is not a simple request, then it will automatically send an options pre-flight request with the origin, with the access control request methods and request headers. You would have seen this in the example that I showed, right? In the What the Code Academy one, that we were sending a pre-flight request. So this is what I was talking about over there. Now what the server does, it will validate the pre-flight request. Response will come with allow origin, allow methods and allow headers. Once you get the pre-flight successful, then you will send the actual request that the website wanted to send. And the response will come with CORS header. Again, the CORS headers will be verified by the browser, and if it is valid, the response will be returned. If it failed, then it will be blocked and the error will be thrown by the browser. So this is the flow. Now let's see this CORS request flow practically. Let's go to the code files. I will be linking the GitHub link of this repo in the description. You can check out the code from there. Index.html contains a very simple UI. So this is how it looks. We have 4 scenarios that we'll be testing. There is a server.js file, which is Node.js, just requiring express and cookie parser. That's all. The most important thing here for you to run this on your environment is make a note of the client origin. So I'm running the front end via the live server of VS Code. So it usually runs on 5500 port. So that's the client origin that I'm giving. For the backend API, I have given is localhost 3000. That's what I've written in the code. That's what I'm running in the code. It is 3000. So that's it should run in 3000 only, but still verify. That's the code. Let's start with the first one. Make simple request. In all the functions, please just note about the fetch request. Everything else is simple. What you need to see here is the first one. We are doing a simple request. Simple request in these terms. So let's see this. It follows this. It's a simple GET request, nothing else. So it should not have a pre-flight request. So let's go back to the server, which is the API endpoint, API/simple. So let me paste it here. For this route, we have a middleware. Let's go there. Yes, we are setting a header access control allow origin client origin. Okay, and which is our client's origin. So that's all what we are doing. So let's see this in the browser. Let me run the server. Okay, now my server is running and we are going to our client. I will open the network tab. Okay, let me just scroll this a bit. Make a simple request. Okay, we see the success on the UI, but let's see the main part, which is in the network request. I have selected all, so we'd see there is no pre-flight request. It's a simple request which has the response is what you will see, the access control allow origin HTTP localhost 550. That's why we were able to access the resource from port 3000, because it allowed us with the whitelisting this domain in the access control allow origin header. Now let's see the pre-flight request demo. So let's go to the index.html. This is the pre-flight request code. Again, just focus on the fetch request. What we are doing is we are making a post request and we are having headers content type application JSON. Because of this part, it is now a complex request, not a simple request. Also this custom header. Okay, so this becomes a complex request, and now browser should automatically send a pre-flight request. Let's see in the server.js how we are handling this. So let me just copy the API endpoint. Okay, so we see there are two API endpoint handling for this. One is options, because the pre-flight request will be sending the HTTP method options. So what we are doing is we are handling the pre-flight with the middleware. Here what we are doing is we are setting the response header as access control or origin, the client origin. On top of it, we are saying which methods we are going to allow: get, post, put, delete options. We are allowing everything. And what are the headers that we are going to allow, which is content type custom header, because if you see in the request, we are having a custom header. So yeah, that is what it is sending. And let me see the other one. So once the options request is done, and once the browser will send the actual post request, how are we handling it? We are just sending a header of access control allow origin, client origin, and then the response. So let's see this in the browser. Okay, let me clear this. Make a pre-flight request. Okay, it's a success in the UI. Let's see. Okay, so if you see here, this time we sent only the fetch request, but browser automatically send the pre-flight request. Let's check the pre-flight request first. So it will send the request headers, access control request headers and access control request method. So whatever headers and method we are trying to access with. Okay, and let's see the response. It will have the response as set by us in the server. So the custom header is now being allowed, and our origin is also being allowed. So similarly, in the actual post request, we will see that our response will have the access control allow origin, because that's only what we sent in the post method response. Let's now see the CORS request flow for allow credentials. Let's go to the code. We should go to the make credential request. In the fetch, what we are doing is we are hitting this endpoint API/credentials, and we are sending credentials include. This is very important. So what credentials does, it tells browser how to handle the sensitive data, the credentials. That means if it is include, that means it will share the credentials even if it's a cross origin request. The other values for credentials are omit, that means never send credentials, and same origin, that means send credentials only for same origin requests. So here we are including credentials include. Let's go to the server, find how this request is being handled. Okay, here we first have to go to credentials. Yes, this is the important header, allow credentials, okay, which is set to true. And this is also important over here, allow origin, which is set to client origin. If you put star over here, it will not send the credentials. It will only work if there is an allowed list of domains. Okay, so this is another important note. After this, let's see what happens in the request. We send response dot cookie with this cookie name and this value. And what are the parameters? The first one is HTTP only. That means the client from its JavaScript cannot access this cookie using document.cookie. Okay, it can be only sent via HTTP requests. Okay. Second is secure, which means that it should only, if it is true, if the value is true, that means the cookies can only be sent over HTTPS connection. Since I am showing it in localhost, I have kept this check so that it is allowing for HTTP requests. Okay, so it's basically secure false. Okay, if it's in production, it should be secure true. Okay, that's how I kept this check. It is checking our node environment. Okay, so let's go to the browser. Let's make that credential request. Let me make the request. Okay, it is successful. See here, there is no pre-flight request. Why? Because it is not a complex request. It is a simple request. Okay, and another thing, let's go to the application and cookies. Okay, here you see that cookie that we are sending from server has been set. And let's also check the header whether it's coming. It should definitely come. Yes, access control allow credentials is true. The last one is simple. We are showing the error scenario. Okay, let's still go to the code. In the index.html, this make error request is a function. We are making a simple request to the endpoint /API/error. Let's go to server.js. In that, we are doing no course headers. Okay, we are just doing response.json. That's all. So pretty obviously, it will fail with the course error. Let's just check it out. Close. Make error request. Yes, error, course error. Even in console, it will have that. Yes, we have the course error. No access control allow origin header. Now I hope you understand what this error is. So those were the demo of course request flows. Now let's talk about security implications. The first one is like two permissive settings, like using access control allow origin star, as I have mentioned multiple times in this video. Never do that. Only allow the domains that you want to whitelist. Okay. Allowing all headers and methods. Also restrict the headers and methods which you know are only going to be asked for. Information disclosure. So never never send the allow credentials to any request that you don't want it to have. And security header bypass. Bypassing CSRF protection, which is done via CSRF token, and circumventing content security policies. So I'll be talking about CSRF and content security policies in another video. For now, just understand that it is related to security, and you should not make misconfiguration so that the CSRF token or the content security policy headers are missed. Let's talk about the best practices. So allow only specific origins. Okay, like you can create a list like this, and you can send an array. So it accepts a single thing, also single domain also, and an array of domains also. Okay. Second is minimal access. Only allow necessary HTTP methods. Like if only get is required, then only send get. Don't allow post and delete. Okay. Similarly for headers. Okay. Don't allow all the headers. Allow only limited headers. Carefully handle credentials. Don't allow credentials true if you don't want them to have the access to authenticated routes. And the last one is use environment specific configurations. So let's say in your when you're developing locally, you want your local host to be whitelisted, but in production you don't want it to be whitelisted. So make those configurations accordingly based on the environment. Like you will have different environment: dev, stage, prod, QA. So make sure that you're not exposing to your API to any unwanted domain in a restricted environment like production. And regular audit of allowed origins. So in case you currently allow certain origins to access your API, but going forward, you know that that origin is not going to access your API, then remove it. Okay, don't let it be there. So yeah, that was all for this video. I hope you understood what course is, what same origin policy is, how do you make course requests, and how do you solve course error if you encounter it. Okay, so That's it for this video. I will see you in the next one.